time to play ball. Welcome to the podcast with no limits. Whether it be sports, current events, or random thoughts, this is the place to step in and stay a while. Your host is a proud alumnus of Rio Hondo Prep, a former minor league baseball umpire, and a man with strong opinions. Welcome to the Get Home Safe podcast and your host, Matt Hersema.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Get Home Safe. It is a Friday edition of the podcast. Happy Friday to everyone out there. Happy weekend eve, if we can say that. We got a wonderful guest on the podcast today. Someone that I have wanted to have on the podcast for a very long time. Someone that is a busy man and hasn't been able to swing it, but I am so happy we are finally sitting down and doing this. We are going to be joined today by none other than Jeff Fairley, who played on some great teams at Rio Hondo Prep back in the early 90s, a CIF champion in football in 1990, was on that great basketball team that went to the state regional finals in 1991. Teammates of guys like Todd Carson, Pete Clark, Dave Joe, John Lee, Bill Lee, all the great names from that team, Rick Johnson, Mike Whiteside, John Carrillo, so many great names from that class or a couple of classes, I should say. Jeff Fairley was an incredible athlete for Rio Hondo Prep, had a great athletic career there after, of course, playing in Care Youth League. We're going to talk about his journey, how he found Care, his experiences at Rio, and then, of course, his time, what life is like for him now. He is a proud graduate from the University of Southern California. He is a physical therapist, owns his own business, or I believe operates his own business, something like that. We will get to all that with him. You can find him on the sidelines, Rio Hondo Prep football games, helping with the medical staff. He's a very proud alumnus of Rio and specifically football. He's a big USC Trojan fan. Just, I'm going to tell him this on the podcast, but he is one of the reasons I showed such an interest in baseball umpiring. I remember when he used to umpire our games as a kid and when I was in junior high, and he always took it seriously and did a great job. And he's a big reason I got into officiating, was because of guys like him and Pete Clark and Mark Carson, and these guys on Saturdays would work these games, not getting paid a whole lot. They probably don't even remember doing much of it, but it inspired a guy like me to put on the uniform one day. So I am just so thrilled to have an opportunity to sit here and have a conversation with Mr. Jeff Fairley, or is it Dr. Fairley? I think it might be Dr. Fairley. I have to check that. I'll double check that with him here when we start this interview. But for those of you affiliated with Rio Hondo Prep, Care Youth League, I think you guys are going to love this. A lot of people have wanted this to happen. And for those that don't know Jeff Fairley, who aren't affiliated with RHP or KYL, you'll still enjoy this conversation. It's another great person that Rio Hondo Prep has produced, in someone who lives in service to others, in helping people heal with their health and everything. And he's just a guy that I think we can all learn from in his journey, and hearing about, where he grew up and kind of all of his experiences and his mentors that he's had over the years. And I think he truly is an inspiration to so many of us, young people, old people. Just you can get a lot from just having a conversation with Jeff Fairley. And I hope you guys enjoy this conversation today. So it is my privilege to finally bring on the Get Home Safe podcast, Mr. Jeff Fairley. Okay, joining me today is another proud alumnus of Rio Hondo Prep from the class of 1992, long time ago, but there he is. But he's on to bigger and better things. He is a physical therapist, a graduate of the University of Southern California, does great work with people in his own business. We'll let him tell you all about that. I've wanted this guy on for a long time. We're finally making it happen. Jeff Fairley, welcome to the Get Home Safe podcast.
Matthew, thank you so much, brother. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the work you're doing on this podcast, and let's chop it up a little bit. I'm looking forward to it.
For sure. I didn't know we were going to be joined by two guests here. Looks like you got some type of turtle there in the background. Is that one of the Ninja Turtles?
Yeah, something like that. Now that's Dude Man. My youngest boy, Isaiah, found him and wanted to keep him. At the time, he was about the size of a quarter, and now he is a big boy. So,
wow. No, that's he's a big guy, filling up that tank quite well. Well, Jeff, it's been a long time, man. I usually see you at Rio football games, and
sure.
I don't like to pressure people. I just kind of continually throw it out. Hey, would you like to have a conversation on the podcast? You weren't ignoring me. You're just a busy guy, and I'm so happy we finally get to do this.
Yeah, it's great, man. I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to our conversation and maybe a few more down the road. So let's do it.
Well, how have you had a chance to listen to some of these interviews, conversations, with Ken Drain or, John Lee, Todd Carson, some of the guys really well?
Yeah, I've heard some of them. I've heard some bits and pieces of them, and then the fun part too is even talking to some of these folks after they'd done the podcast and just their reflections on it. And so yeah, I've had a chance to dabble with it. Like you said, I'm somewhat limited in my a free podcast listing time, but I've heard a few episodes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mentioned you are a physical therapist, and tell the people here on the podcast kind of a little bit more about what you do, your business, and kind of how you offer your services to people.
Sure. So I have a private practice in Claremont, California. It's called the Body Center Physical Therapy and Pilates. We're kind of in the downtown Claremont area. If you're a RHP fan, if you were headed to Webb, instead of going left and going towards the foothills, you'd go right, kind of back down towards the downtown. We're kind of walking distance from the Claremont colleges. We're an outpatient physical therapy center. We kind of focus primarily in neuromusculoskeletal disorders for adolescents and adults. We see a wide range of people. So some of the student athletes from the colleges will come on in. We have a large retirement community within the Claremont area, so we'll get a lot of retirees, and we kind of get everything in between. Really, our motto is feel good so you can do good. And kind of our goal as physical therapists is to try to help improve people's function, relieve and alleviate their symptoms, help them adapt to potential changes that might occur with, an injury or a trauma, so that, they can go on and do things that are important to them, and do them in an effective way, hopefully in a pain-free way or pain minimized way. So that's our clinic. We also do Pilates. So we kind of have a wellness side of our office built into it. So we have a lot of clients that maybe were in physical therapy 5 or 10 years ago that are still doing regular exercise via Pilates on Pilates Reformer. So we do group classes and private lessons as well. Pilates used to be a very niche activity. It's a little bit more mainstream now, but we've been able to find a value price point so that we think, even the average person can get in there and get some Pilates classes and exercise in. So.
Wow. So I would say, most people go to a doctor because, they're sick of some kind. Most people you see have maybe some type of injury, maybe through athletics, or maybe just, we all get injured in at work or just different things. So you really do a lot of kind of help me if I misspeak, jump in, but you're really helping kind of rehab, get people back right, or at least improve some of their injuries.
Sure, that's the majority of what we do. We'll see folks that have been either surgically involved or even non-surgically involved. Sometimes diagnosis is very clear. Other times it's a little more nebulous. But largely someone's coming in with some sort of a pain complaint. Sometimes that's associated with a sense of weakness or loss of mobility, limited range of motion or flexibility. And the ultimate impact is they can't do something that's enjoyable to them. It could be something that's really on the recreational side, like golf or hiking. It could be something that's a little bit more basic, like getting in and out of bed, or getting in and out of the car, or sitting at the office for work. And so we'll work with folks to try to restore as much normalcy of function in an ideal world, maybe even better than normal. A lot of us maybe aren't functioning at our potential and would like to function at a higher level. So sometimes it's a springboard to get people back into the fitness or the shape that they want to be in, with maybe some better understanding about why previous exercises have resulted in more irritation or injury, right? What things to avoid or what things to do to kind of mitigate that. And then, the whole post-operative side of it too, right? So someone sees a doc and, hey, you've got a rotator cuff tear, you need to have surgery. Then, yeah, we're there to kind of be the eyes and ears and help guide you back to normalcy after procedure.
So do most of your clients, are they suggested to you by some other medical professional, or is this the type of place where you can walk in and be like, hey, my knee hurts, or hey, my hip hurts, what can you guys do for me?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Matt. It's kind of it's a lot of both. We definitely have a lot of referrals from community physicians, but even broader throughout Southern California. We get a lot of word of mouth referrals, and we've been very fortunate and blessed to kind of get the highest compliment of people referring their family members over to us or their friends. But we also do service the community as best we can with respect to walk-ins or someone who maybe is unreferred. We certainly, in California now, there is what we call direct access. You can't see a physical therapist without having to first go through having to see a physician. Now, the insurance payers and things like that may have different rules about it, but from a access point of view, there's definitely access, and we do consultations that we certainly will do for people, just to even kind of give them a sense that physical therapy has an opportunity to help them or not. But for most people, to kind of make substantial changes, it does require some commitment of time, energy, and effort. And usually it's not going to be something that's going to be solved in a single visit. There are a lot of things that we can be addressed, a lot of things that can be educated, a lot of things that can be done to kind of turn the car around and start going in the right direction. But usually for most people, it is a little bit of a journey. It does take a little bit of time, and that's a part of, we have some things that can help make that journey a little bit easier. One of the unique things we have is an Alter G treadmill. It's called Alter G because it can reduce the impact of gravity on you. So in this treadmill system, I can reduce your body weight to 20%. So for me, I'm a little bit heftier. I'll be at 50 pounds or so on that treadmill. Look at it. Me and Usain Bolt could have a race if I'm only weighing 50 pounds. So that treadmill is pretty powerful in a way of kind of changing it both on our performance side with our athletes, but also, if you have arthritic knees or painful hip or painful back, weighing 50% of your body weight can make a big difference to how that joint feels when you're moving.
Got it. And I got to ask, this is just something I'm curious in, because so many of us can relate. We've all had an agonizing injury that's just like, whether it was a car accident or we tripped at work, and we're not quite, most injury, they just take time to heal. But obviously there's ways to improve that. How much have you seen over the years being involved in this business? I don't know how to say this exactly, but just the improvement, the science, it changes. Modern medicine can be marvelous at times. What are some of the biggest changes, I guess, you've seen in the physical therapy world?
Wow, that's a broad question. I would say two things, Matt. One is I guess I would say some of it's a little bit of a worldview. I just believe in my heart of hearts that we're created as amazing human beings, and we have built within us, and I think this is very provable by science, a system for restoration, a system for self-repair, a system for restoration to normalcy. That's very much unlike your car or your blender. There's no built-in mechanisms to fix itself, but the human body is designed to fix itself. So in some regards, Matt, our job is largely to create the best environment for the body to heal. And so, I'd love to take a lot more credit, but, the reality is that most of what we're doing in PT is kind of setting people up for success that they're designed to happen. Now, with respect to the science, I'd say probably the biggest thing that has changed within the world of physical therapy, at least in my small part of the world, there's physical therapy and rehabilitation is very broad, but we've learned a lot more about what we call pain neuroscience education. Maybe the simplest way to say it is that the brain is the ultimate processor. And so where we used to discard external factors, we recognize now that somebody's knee pain will be substantially affected by, did they lose a pet, or did they lose a job? Are they having relational problems? Their pain experience can be highly influenced by lots of other inputs that are going into the brain. And so then as a result of that, you can really get a wide presentation of symptomatology. And as a therapist, as a physical therapist, you really got to listen. You got to really hear people. You got to really know what it is that is driving them as far as their goals, what they're trying to get out of physical therapy, so that you can really meet them where they're at.
It's so interesting that there is a very big mental element in recovery and sure. In so many aspects of our lives. I think of it on the flip side when a guy is injured in, say, a football game or something, and it's a rather serious injury, but the adrenaline is so high, your mind is elsewhere, where you're able to not ignore the pain, but just kind of power through it because mentally the adrenaline is just cooking.
Sure. Yeah. And when I mentioned that term, pain experience, right? One of the things we've learned is that, there are times where your brain will choose to not respond or react to the pain stimulus, and will choose to react to something else, right? So whether that is whether that's the adrenaline of the game, or the protection of a child, or self-preservation because of a unique situation. So, and all those factors into what someone else's pain experience is like.
Yeah. And each of us does a different threshold of pain. You got
Sure.
your tough guys, you got your not so tough guys. And so here's something a question I have. Like I've been around doctors and therapists. How does one express because you have to treat something that you're not physically feeling. You're sure. Getting feedback from someone who's like, hey, this hurts and this hurts this much. How do you then approach what you got to do when you're not physically feeling what they're feeling? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Well, I like to hope that as a PT, I can really serve as a translator, that the language that a patient is using to describe the challenges that they're facing, the pain they're experiencing, the difficulties that they're going through, that I can hear that, and then at the same time, maybe start to assign what would be the pain generators or the impairments that are causing that, right? So I hear that you're describing this lateral pain down your arm, and I understand that you've been rubbing it for the last 3 weeks and it hasn't gotten better. But that sounds a lot more like a rotator cuff tendon injury in the shoulder. And so what you're describing, I'm hearing maybe and translating to maybe what that actual source of the problem is. And in some ways, that's the kind of the key that says, well, then maybe I can help you with that by doing certain steps that we think would likely reduce the irritability of the tissues, maybe help to fortify the tissues so that they can be more functional, and maybe certain movement patterns that keep aggravating it that you're not aware of. Let's change those activities so that if you will, the old hammering the nail and hitting the thumb. If you keep hitting your thumb over and over again, your thumb's going to keep hurting. It's not quite always that simple, but sometimes it is, once you kind of figure out what those aggravating factors are. But you're right, it is a challenge to be in somebody or to listen to somebody not having walked a mile in their moccasins, to be able to empathize with what their problem is, but at the same time stay in my lane as you're coming from my expertise to help you get out of this morass. So yeah, I got to be able to kind of get down there with you, but at the same time, you're also asking me to help you get out of it. So then I got to be able to person that says, okay, well, stop doing this and stop doing that, start doing this.
Yeah, no, it's great stuff. Help me, help you. Translator, I like that. That's interesting. We often think of just language, but sometimes, yeah, translating and kind of defining what's going on there. Jeff, how did you get involved? What was the moment in your life where you're like, I want to help people heal. I want to pursue this life as a physical therapist.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny. I was a playground doctor. I was a kid. Not because I had any special knowledge. I just decided I was, and everyone else went with it. But when the kid fell off the monkey bars, I came over and I was the one that decided, yeah, you should run talk to the school nurse because your arm's crooked. Or you know what, you just got to tough it out. You're okay. Just get up. We're all going to keep playing. You're going to be fine. My grandmother, my mom, they both wanted me. They wanted me to have a title of doctor. They wanted me to be this professional. And it's interesting. My plan was to be a physical therapist in part because of my experience in high school and junior high. I had relatively limited access to physicians. We didn't really go often, but my knees were hurting a lot. So finally, my mom took me down to what I know now as LA County Hospital and the clinic there. And, it was sort of an all-day affair because, it's kind of a walk-in urgent care kind of clinic situation. At least it was then in the mid 80s. And, after waiting, eventually we saw a doctor and they looked at my knee and they just said, well, you just shouldn't play football this year. And that was sort of the answer. And that was hard as an eighth grader. I wanted to play football and couldn't do it. So, I stayed out for the 2 months or whatever it was. And my knee felt exactly the same as it felt the 2 months before, so I just told my mom I'm playing. And, she said, well, okay. I kept having knee pain even into high school. And Mr. Johnson was our coach at the time. He arranged for me to see a physical therapist. And of course, they explained to me what was wrong with my knee and what I needed to do and why it was hurting. And even gave me some treatment stuff to try to help it be better. And, I kind of just was kind of blown back a little bit by the idea that, man, I saw the doctor after waiting for 6 or 7 hours for 7 minutes, and they told me not to play. That was the solution. And I saw physical therapists, and after 6 or 7 minutes, they were doing things to try to help me be able to play and do this. And I thought, man, well, I think it's pretty obvious what I want to do. I love sports and I can help people, get back to doing it. Obviously, it wasn't quite that simple. Later in college, I remember on a summer trip, Dr. Doug Walsh, I think he was in residency at the time. And I was explaining to him that, I had decided I'm going to go into medicine and it's just, it's what I'm going to do. And he was pretty shrewd and kind of saying, but, Jeff, that doesn't sound like your heart's in it. Doesn't sound like that's a passion for you. Doesn't sound like that's what you're called to do. It sounds like you're kind of doing it out of obligation. And that hit home pretty hard. And some more reflection, I kind of went back to what I knew I did love, which was doing physical therapy. And of course, as God would have it, the physical therapy program that I went to the year before I got in transitioned from a master's program to a doctoral program. So I, in fact, got the doctor title that my grandma and my mom had desired me to get, while also getting the activity and degree that I thought that was called, and I've loved to do ever since. So I guess it all kind of worked out.
It is so funny how God works sometimes he gives you the true desires of your heart, as he says, but it's sometimes you reach a goal or you hit an accomplishment, not quite the way you envisioned, but it's almost like God said, see, not exactly how you wanted, but in some form or another. And it's just like, okay, the man upstairs has a sense of humor too.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, and these are things that, I guess one of the exciting things about a podcast like this is that, you hope that someone else will hear something that will inspire them, or they'll learn from the mistakes, because I've been far from perfect, and I've induced my own struggles in a lot of ways. But I think what you said, God is faithful. He does have a plan for us, and he's sovereign, and so I think there's some solace in that when things aren't going so well, to kind of recognize that there is a plan. Sometimes it's beyond our understanding, but there's a plan.
No doubt. And even though, like Dr. Walsh said there, it doesn't sound like your heart's in it. When you do put your heart fully into something, there's still obstacles. There's got to still be moments where you're like, I know I committed to this, but I'm not sure I can do this. You went to the University of Southern California, fight on. Were there moments there when, you had to seek out maybe some help emotionally, or just like, I don't know if I can do this, or, there had to be obstacles along the way.
Yeah. I would even say just day one, I loved Rihanna Prep. It was a great school for me. My graduating class was 15 people. Probably 10 of them I had been in class with fifth grade or fourth grade, to go to a school of 25,000 students and to have 650 people in an 8 a.m. biology lecture in an auditorium where, nobody knew me from anyone else. Rihanna Prep, I think, is sort of a social network of itself. And so walking into the college scene, it's a very different social network, both by class, by interest, by race. And so, having not really experienced that in high school, it was definitely an adjustment to just seeing how the broader culture interacts. So, yeah, it was hard, that transition. You couple that with coaching Archway and working and commuting, and it was, and even just, little things, right? Just the USC schedule is not the Care Youth League schedule. It's not the Rihanna Prep schedule, right? We started in August. We were done in May. So, I'm trying to figure out fall semester classes and trying to get coaching assignments. And, there's a 6-week gap in between the two, right? So it's like, well, what classes am I going to take so I'm available to coach? And nobody can tell me. And I'm like, well, I guess I got to register, because I got to register in March. And, so there were lots of challenges during that time, at USC.
So why USC? Were there other options? Would there have been maybe another path for you that may have not easier, but just, closer maybe, or whatever? Or why did you have your heart set on USC?
Well, that's another good question, Matt. And I think, at 47 with lots of gray hair, maybe the answer would have been different than at 17. At 17, the fact that they wanted me was a pretty big deal. And so other schools were willing to take me, but USC wanted. And so that was a big pull for me. I think had I to do it over again, I don't know that I would have changed where I went. I might have changed how I handled the situation. My mom worked really hard, but we didn't have a lot of extra. And, debt was a scary thing. I'm still paying for it, but, I worked a lot to try to avoid more debt. I wish I would have maybe done some things a little bit differently in that regard. But at the end of the day, you're going in this journey. You don't always know what's going to be ahead. So sometimes you make the best decisions you can at the time, And, I don't live in regret, but I do, I think I do have some things I think about for either my children or for other college age, students, things I didn't think about or things no one told me about at that age. And so, when I have those opportunities, I try to make sure that, maybe some of those thoughts and ideas get put out there so that people make maybe a more fully informed decision.
Well, I know that I don't know many USC graduates, a few of my dad's uncles, I think, and it's a very prestigious school. And I just remember, I think I was very good friends with Todd Carson when he taught. Oh yeah, Fairley goes to SC. I'm like, what? He actually goes to USC? So many of us are just fans, of the teams, but to actually go there, and I've been on the campus a few times. It's incredible, and I know it must have been hard at times, but you got to be proud at times of your alma mater, although the football program's been a little shady there, my friend.
Well, we got Lincoln, so things are going the right direction in that regard,
right?
Coaching changes take a while to kind of ripple in, but he seems like he's maybe on the fast track. I think part of that college experience, especially at some of the larger institutions, includes their traditions in sports, right? Whether it's football, basketball, baseball, what have you. And so, having a good team is a nice thing. I was there when we weren't so good. So, that decade-long losing streak to UCLA and Notre Dame was part of my experience at USC. So that was tough, but it was nice that towards that graduate school. And then when I graduated, we had was Lightning and Thunder back with us. And so that was better. We had a better team then. Pete Carroll and the guys, that was a nice era to watch. But I have no regrets at USC. I met some really great people there. Met some great people as an undergrad, was able to do my graduate studies there, which is a whole different animal, the physical therapy school, and which kind of has that kind of smaller feel again, unlike the 500 person bio class. So yeah, I met some lifelong mentors there who really shaped my thinking as a physical therapist, not only from just giving me the base information, but also really kind of challenging me to be excellent and to settle for nothing less than being excellent. And in being excellent, that also meant getting inputs from other places. One of my primary mentors demanded that I go do a residency program anywhere other than USC, because I'd already been to USC. I'd already learned the information from that group of individuals and those experts. I needed to go somewhere else to learn more. And so I'm forever grateful for those relationships and those experiences.
Oh, it's awesome to hear about it. I mean, a degree from USC is, you hear that and you're like, oh, wow. It's very impressive. It doesn't roll off the tongue as much as, hey, I went to Cal State Fullerton, so, but let me ask you this, some people who went to other schools, but, there is these big rivalries, as you mentioned. What are your thoughts of UCLA and Notre Dame? Do you ever go into USC? Do you hate those schools, or is it just like, yeah, they play them and whatever?
Well, I definitely hate them on Saturdays. There's no doubt about that. And, well, I usually don't have to worry about them in January because they don't play football in that month. But, during the fall, I have no love lost for my baby blue friends over at UCLA. But of course, as you move into professional ranks, you start to learn about what different schools do really well, right? And I guess maybe when I'm advising some of these younger folks is that, yes, there's a name and a name prestige, and there's some value in that. But then there's also, what is that you're actually going to study? And I was fortunate that USC actually has the #1 ranked PT program in the country. So I was able to go to the top-notch program at the time. And so that was a really great benefit. But, if you're doing hotel and restaurant management, maybe Cal Poly Pomona is your better option, right? Because it's consistently a top 5 school in the country, usually right behind UNLV in that particular program. So, I think sometimes it does matter what you want to study and who's going to teach you where you should go.
Well, very cool. I've heard they're gonna forgive all student debt here soon. So, you should have other options, or at least that's what some people say out there. But anyway,
well, I can't imagine that would impact inflation in any way. But carry on.
No, it sounds like a great idea. More free money for everyone. But those are my 2 cents. Whatever. Well, Jeff, we talked about kind of your current and adult life here. Where for you, or where did you grow up? I should say. I always like asking people, how did you discover this place that would change your life forever? 5150 Farna Avenue. Where did you grow up at, and when did you start Care Youth League?
So I grew up in South Doherty, right around the corner from Maxwell School, what we like to refer to as below the tracks, and which is now not very far actually from where the Care Park facility is there in Irwindale off of Arrow Highway. I joined via a baseball sign-up at Royal Oaks Park. Mr. John Lee Sr. was our coach. I think there was a flyer that came home in the mail, and not in the mail, but rather from the school. At the time, I was at Light and Life School in Doherty, and we went out to the Royal Oaks Park, and Mr. Lee was out there. I want to say Dan Kirby was out there too, and signed me up, and I got to be Atlantic Pirate. I got to play back catcher, and so I played back catcher for my first season, and I just really enjoyed it. It was fun. I was an unskilled and raw player, but enjoyed it and was really passionate about it. And Mr. Lee worked with me, and baseball is the first sport. Fortunately, soccer, I played quite a bit of soccer. In my neighborhood, soccer was a big deal. And so, I scored a few goals in those first few games, and Mr. Lee was happy I was on the Pirates there. And then, from there, it kind of one thing led to another. It introduced me to the school at Rio Hondo Prep. It's actually right now I'm filling out the applications for my kids. And it was one of those situations where we kind of missed those application deadlines when I was at Light and Life. And my mom went to try to enroll me. They're like, well, the class is full. You didn't fill out the application in time. And she's like, well, where are we going to go? And, there was room at Rio Hondo. And so there made the transfer over and started there in elementary school. So.
Wow. That back when Rio used to do elementary school. That's right.
Yeah.
Funny. And again, funny how things work out. Like you missed a deadline and needed, looked at other options. And there you go. Who were some of I think I had on this podcast, I had Rod Bazuzzi, I had Pete Clark. They talked about, their younger days growing up in Doherty. Did you cross paths with those guys ever?
Oh man, RB and I were best buds, man. We grew up right down the street from each other. We used to roll around in shopping carts, racing down the street, and ride our dirt bikes around. And RB was crazy, man, and it was fun. I mean, I was crazy too, but he was a little bit more crazy than me. We literally grew up 4 minutes from each other, right around the corner. John Zakula, Andy Rojo, Dave Lemons, Jeff Strasser, Mike Whiteside, Dusty Lane, Jay Winrick, all some old Atlantic guys that were either my class or just above, just below me. Those were some good days. Now, the older guys, they're older than me, right? So, I was class of 92. The class of 91 actually was when Rio Hondo Prep kind of reorganized a little bit. So they were 2 grades above me. But by the time we ended up at graduation in high school, we ended up being 1 grade apart. So Rick Johnson, Todd Carson, Pete Clark, that group, they actually are 2 grades above me. So in junior high, right, they were 8th grade, I was a 6th grader, right? So those guys were like towering over us. But fortunately, usually things kind of catch up a little bit in high school. So by the time I was a sophomore, I was able to play with those guys, even though they were a couple years older than me.
And back to the childhood just a little bit. When
Yeah.
you guys are growing up, so many great friends. Was it the type of neighborhood? I mean, you guys are playing ball out in the yard, running around with Bazoozi and the guys until the street lights came on. Was it that type of old school ways that we used to have?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes, and mostly yes. So yeah, street lights come on, time to come home, play out in the street, play out the neighborhood. Absolutely. Yeah, I will say that the neighborhood was not, was imperfect for sure. And there was, there's a fair amount of undesirable activities going on. And so that was a factor, right? You had to have your eyes on the swivel a little bit. So whether it was, just guys racing down the street with their lowrider cars, bumping the music, or, guys doing other things that were even worse, you had to be aware of that. You had to be aware of where you were going, or aware of your surroundings. My mom was pretty good in letting me play with my friends, but also pretty specific in where I could go, where I couldn't go, and when I could do it. So yeah, there was definitely that element of, play football out in the street with your friends, or play soccer, whatever it is. And there was also an element of be aware of what cars driving down the street.
Yeah, which one for sure. Isn't it interesting? At least I found as I've grown older, and Rio Hondo does such a great job of having their students really take part in so many things. I think maybe one of the theories is, hey, the more busy you are, the less trouble you can get into. But that's not just for high school kids. That's when we go into college. That's in our adult years. And I'm just like, I found that when I'm I don't have time to make as many mistakes as I make in life when I'm more busy. And I think that is something that I think Rio kind of does with their students. You're going to play an instrument. You're going to play all the sports. You're going to take these AP classes and things like that. And it does help with your teenage development, I will say, better than maybe other places do.
Yeah, I do think there's a lot to be said for both giving students opportunity to shine. So whether that's in athletics or in the arts, in the STEM programs, academic programs in general, I think the community service and giving back to the Carey League kids and the coaching is really an important part of helping young people develop a sense of empathy and a sense of care and concern, giving back. So I think there are a lot of upsides to that, and I do think, I do think the sense of balance is maybe a little better. I think the program is always trying to improve itself, right? And I think when you look back, you could maybe make the argument that there wasn't enough sense of balance for family life. And I think so some of those sort of challenges, I think, are being better in tune, trying to make sure that families do have some time off. But I agree with you in general, Matt, that, being a little bit more busy is always served me better than having more free time on my hands.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, that's well said. And, you talked about some of your great teammates as we kind of go into the high school years and everything here, some legendary names. I talked in the intro about your 1990 championship football team, your 1991 basketball team. And I mean, we'll get to some of that, but I want to ask you, as far as coaches, leaders, mentors, during those teenage years, junior high, high school, who were some of the most influential leaders in your life during those years?
Wow, that's great. I mean, there are a lot of them, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but certainly Mr. John Lee started it in Atlantic, and sure, he taught me how to play on the field and the fundamentals, right? But he also taught me how to rake the home plate area, and he taught me how to this is how you put the catcher's equipment away, and this is what I expect out of you. If you're the catcher, that you're going to bring your equipment and you're going to get it out, you're going to take care of it, you're going to put it back, and this is how it's going to go. and if you're catching, then you're responsible for home plate, and it should be perfect after every practice. And those little things go a long ways, and kind of giving you a sense of pride of workmanship, and just also just this is my role on the team, right? Mr. Chris Horton was there in junior high for sure, and certainly junior high is a challenging time. He was willing to run around with us. He did this great bike ride from Morro Bay back to Los Angeles. That was our summer camp, so we stayed at the beach every night and rode our bikes 40 or 60 miles, and then stayed at another beach and rode all the way home. And he just did a lot of just great activities, but also really just challenged us to make some decisions about what we wanted to do with our lives. As I got in high school, Mr. Drain was my leader. And it's interesting, he was the one who would pick me up, and Mr. Johnson was my coach, and Mr. Johnson would tell me how it is. And it was a hard 2 years as a freshman and sophomore, but I can honestly say turning that corner as a junior and senior, it became, Mr. Johnson was certainly my coach, no doubt. But there was a lot more collaboration. There were definitely times where he would say to me, "What play do you want to run?" Which was not what was going to happen as a freshman, right? It wasn't until he saw that I had bought in 100% to the system and the program. And then it was, it's 4th and 2. What do you want to run? Or what defense you want to be in, and that was at the time, you're just playing the game. But later, you start to look at that, there was a transition in that relationship that was built on trust and respect and obedience as well. He knew that I would do my job, and he knew that I would give him the best input as a coach for what was going on the field. And, I think that was something I look back on and am really grateful that that's how that relationship went. Because, man, it was rough that freshman year.
I think a lot of us can relate, growing up 4 short years and in so many different ways. We'll talk about basketball in a second, but Jeff, the Rio Hondo Prep football brand, I think, is one of the biggest secrets in Southern California. It's a real deal, in my opinion. I've tried hard to promote it. You now get to be on the sidelines during Rio Hondo Prep games, assisting, with the medical staff and everything, or maybe running it. I'm not sure. But as someone who formerly played at Rio Hondo Prep, you won a championship in 1990, and now to see where the program has gone, what are your thoughts on what does Rio Hondo Prep football mean to you from your experiences and where you've seen it grown?
Well, I would say in some regards, it is the epitome of family. I remember the 1990 game, of course, right? But I also remember being a water boy in 1987 and being in that locker room after we had lost. And I was a water boy. I didn't run all those laps. I didn't lift all the weights, but I knew those guys. I was at every game. I cared about them, and they were hurting because they had put it all out there on the field and they had come up short. Not because they did something wrong or anything. They just didn't win that game. And, many of those same guys were there in 1990 rooting us on at our championship game. And so, what you kind of learn that as I get older, right, that it is about that camaraderie. It is about the quest. It is about, believing that we are on a mission to be successful, but we also believe in a great and good God, and that we're on some levels trying to represent what it is to be a godly athlete. And in that respect, then, you know, we hopefully are different in some way than an athlete that's never taken the time to think about that in the way we conduct ourselves, the way we conduct our play, the way our attitude about it. And of course, you know, at 16 or 17, you don't quite necessarily have all those things kind of worked out in your mind, but you know that you are trying to hold yourself to a higher standard. And so, you know, I think that there's the performance on the field, and you know, I think the evolution of the program from the conditioning and strength conditioning program, the medical services that we're able to provide now, the nuances of the offense. You know, every once in a while I'll try to look at that playbook and I can't figure it out. You know, the you know, Mark Carson blitzing every play. You know, not every play. It's my joke with him, but you know, just that pressure defense that we play. You know, yes, there's all these great elements about the technical side of it, but I think the thing that has been there through the generations has been the sense of family. And it was, you know, it's just funny. Even just the other day, Todd had organized a basketball game, and there was probably guys over a 20-year span that came out to play ball together. And, you know, they all wore the Cares uniform, right? And there was sort of a certain brotherhood of just, you know, come out here, we'll play together. Even though I'm old and fat, I'm not going to guard you. Really, I'm going to foul you. So, you know, but you're probably going to travel while you're trying to step back and do your Steph Curry thing, whatever. So, you know, go ahead and do all that, and then we'll take the ball the other way, and I'm going to pound you in the post. And that's the way I play. So, you know, but it was fun that all those guys were there. And so I think, you know, that football, there is this family that comes of it, you know, and there's ups and downs with family, right? There's times of great success. There's times where things don't go as well as we'd hope. And, you know, we live together as a family. We support each other as a family. We try to promote each other's success as a family.
Well, Rio Hondo football has been in great hands, you know, since Mr. Johnson, Mike Dowd before that, and to go from then to Ken Drain to Mark Carson. I mean, just unbelievable guys who have been at the helm to see Rio Hondo prep football grow, and to all the great success it's had. And, you know, even the teams that don't win titles. I mean, for us alumni, you know, it's just like a small town thing. You're looking in, you go on Facebook, hey, how the boys doing? You know, what's it like for you to be on the sideline? You're hoping you're never needed, right, for injuries and such, but you get a front row seat every week, and you don't have to make any coaching decisions. You generally don't have, you know, a relative on the team or anything. You just get a front row seat to Rio Hondo prep football.
Yeah, it's really exciting. You know, to me, the best part is getting to know those guys, getting to know the young men that are on that team, and just seeing them give 110% for their goal of success. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to try to help them where I can, whether it's in injury prevention or injury management. It's really a joy to be there. It's so fun to watch them. It's also really fun to watch the backups from the underclassmen, and you start to see where some of them, you see that fire starting to brew. You know, they're itching to get out there, right? And then, you know, you see some that are like, oh boy, I don't know. You know, and you know, their time will come, right? But you know, you kind of can just see that there. That's really fun. It is also fun to see the coaches interact, right? To see how they are able to collaborate amongst each other. You know, they have a lot of strong-willed coaches that make up that coaching staff. And, you know, I think I think Mark has done a really good job of putting together some guys that will have some strong opinions and challenge what he wants to do and how he's going to do it. And ultimately they get onto a consensus and onto the same page. But it actually is pretty fun to kind of watch how they battle through certain things in the game. What coverage do we want to be in? What play do we want to be in now? It is interesting to kind of watch that process too from the sideline, knowing that I know these guys so well.
Yeah. Oh no, and I want to mention the medical staff, because I've been around a lot of football teams, whether I'm officiating or whatever, and I would argue that Rio Hondo Prep's medical staff is second to none at the high school level. You got yourself, you have Dr. Walsh who's there, and maybe not guys are there every game, or maybe they are. You got I think Jason Steris, who I believe is a doctor, or is gonna
He's
be a
in
doctor.
Residency right now. So yeah.
Oh,
so,
residency.
Yeah.
You got him. Randy Johnson Jr. is a certified athletic trainer, even though he's busy calling plays. I mean, the Rio Hondo Prep football players are in great hands.
I think we've really worked hard to try to make sure we got it fully covered. Dr. Walsh is kind of this just steady fixture of Rio Hondo football. He's doing it for 30 years. But we've been able to kind of come around and support him as well. And, I've been grateful that some of the athletic trainers and in that have been looking to either volunteer hours or pick up some hours have been willing to come out and also support our games as well. So we had another young lady named Destiny that came out last year, and it was a great addition there on the sidelines. And so, yeah, we are trying very much to make sure our athletes really get that optimal experience. We want them to be safe. We want them to be happy and healthy. But football is a contact sport. It's I don't want to say violent. I don't know if that's the right term, but it's a contact sport. And consequently, there are going to be some times where guys get banged up a little bit. And we're trying to make sure that, even with that, they get all the upsides of that sport. There is a certain gladiator mentality of being a football player, that your body is going to get beat up a little bit for a bigger or higher purpose, so to speak. And there's some debates about that, and I know that there's different mindsets about whether football is it a wise thing to do. But I think we're working really hard to try to make it as safe as possible for our athletes, both on the field, on the sidelines, how they're being trained, how they're being taught, how it's being reinforced.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm so impressed with the level of professionalism really in that field, the medical side of things. Because I've worked football games. You're like, hey, who's your medical person? And you almost have to like find someone out of a stands. And Rio's got all these great people that are there to make everything safe, as you just mentioned. Jeff, back to your playing days. Now I got to ask, because you're on a great 1990 team, especially your junior year there when they won the title. I mean, how did you mix in carries, man, getting some touches of the ball when you got, two great running backs and Rick Johnson and Mike Whiteside?
Well, I think one of the great things about that team was that I think really as a team, we were committed to winning as a team. I had been a running back as a kid growing up, but I was asked to play receiver. And so I worked really hard to be a better receiver. We didn't have a receivers coach or some of the other things that you have now. So, for us, it was just going out and working, right? So I would say Todd and I probably threw 30, 40 minutes every day, maybe with the exception of a Sunday, all year long. Before practice, after practice, we kind of had a routine, and we would just pitch and catch. And I understand we were a running team, right? We threw the ball like 4 times a game, but didn't stop us from practicing. I think as a result, we were in very good sync as a receiver quarterback duo. I distinctly remember a game against Templeton. It was the first game of that 1990 season, and it was a 4th and I don't know, maybe a 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, 4th and 11, something like that. At the time, we rotated in plays, right? So I was bringing the play in, And Mr. Johnson looked at me and said, "What do you want to run?" And I told him, "Well, we're going to run a quadruple option left, right?" And usually that gives me one-on-one coverage on the offside. And then usually, Todd would look off the safety and then come back across the middle. And for whatever reason, they went to an umbrella and to a double safety look. And so I come to the line of scrimmage. I look at him like, well, this play's not going to work. They had me bracketed with a high and low. And I remember running the route, looking back, and Todd's like breaking a tackle, and he's throwing the ball as he's being tackled. And I just remember looking back, and the defender was between me and the ball, so I really couldn't see the ball after it left his hands. So, all that practice, right? I knew what spot I was supposed to be at, and I ran, and I was a little bit behind, so I dove, and the ball hit me in the hands, and I never saw it, and I caught it, and we kept on going with the play. And so if for that play alone, I would have said, yes, that was a career worth having as far as a receiver, because I didn't have egg on my face for calling the wrong play, even though they went to a different defense. But yeah, it was, I had a great opportunity to do damage on that team. Mr. Johnson at that time really did try to give his running backs a little bit of a break on kickoffs and punts and stuff like that. So I returned punts, I returned kickoffs, like I said, wide receiver, and then I would back either one of them up. So it was great because, I kind of had this, and actually my role with that team, honestly, Matt, to be fair, was a lot of times to be the utility player. So, whether, if Mike needed a blow, I went in at tailback. If Rick needed a blow, I went in at fullback. My normal receiver position was wide receiver, but the championship game, Dave Joe had hurt his back. And so I played tight end the championship game. Baseball, basically whoever's pitching, I played their spot. So if Todd was pitching, I played first. If Mike was pitching, I played third. If Rick was pitching, I played short. If Gregorio was pitching, I played second. And not because I was good at any of the positions, but it was just I was willing to work hard, and Mr. Johnson knew I'd give 100% no matter where he put me. So that was kind of my job in that junior year on that team.
Hey, man, a Swiss Army knife. It's not a big tool, but it is a tool that can do a lot of great things. Just Swiss Army knife, Jeff Fairley. That's awesome, man. I've heard, you were kind of a shorter guy like me, but far more talented, kind of like a Maurice Jones-Drew type of like little bowling ball running the ball.
Yeah, it was fun back then. It was different contact era back then. You didn't run out of bounds. No. So yeah, I had fun doing it, man. The older I get, the better I was. So I'll be careful, but it was fun.
I know, man. That's one of the great things. And I want, in this upcoming year, we're going to do a separate podcast that is just Real Hondo football, like we did this last year. I'm just excited for the content, for the access from fans who don't live in this state or even this country to be able to look back and be like, let's cheer on those guys, because that's the uniform I used to wear. And Real Hondo Prep is just football is so special. We can't talk to you though without talking about your incredible group of guys and the basketball run you guys had. No disrespect to the CIF champions of 2013, but Jeff, you played on the greatest Real Hondo Prep basketball team in school history.
Well, it was a really great run with a bunch of really fun guys. And one of the cool things is that, we had been kind of a basketball team from, 6th or 7th grade. Mr. Drain had coached the 8th graders, which is, a lot of those guys that were there. We ran some of the same systems, and it was, we go on these summer trips and we play basketball and play, a lot of basketball. And so, we go to parks and play ball, and we just knew each other really, really well. And it's rare to see a team that had the level of being in sync that we really were. And I could see a rebound, and I could see where Todd's first step was. And I knew he was going to come underneath and poke the ball out from underneath that guy. That ball is going to the corner, and I'm going to the corner because that's where he's going to poke that ball out. You know, I got hit in the ear twice. And from that point forward, I had my hands up because Rick would get me the ball. And, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, he's going to get me the ball. So I just need to keep moving until I get to that open spot and then catch it. Otherwise, it's going to hit you in the ear and it's going to hurt. But yeah, it was a great run with those guys. It was, when you say the best team in history, I don't know. But what I do know is it was a really fun experience. We had some unique things. We ended up going back to Washington, D.C. during the Christmas time to do a performance at the White House. And, of course, Mr. Johnson got us a couple of basketball games. And so, we got to play some people out of state. And it was just really fun that season. We ended up getting into the state playoffs and traveling, almost as a school, right? The boys and girls were both in the state playoffs. And so, we drove down to San Diego and we played a team down there. We drove up to Central California, played a team up there, came back down to play again, and it was really just an amazing, very memorable and exciting time.
Sidwell Friends in Washington, D.C., where, some presidents' kids have gone in the past, and you guys played them. And is it true that when they announced Todd Carson as the center at 5'10", that the crowd actually started laughing?
They laughed. They were chanting Hollywood. They were doing all kinds of funny things. Yeah. And, and at 5'7", I jumped center for our team. And I won the tip that time too, by the way. So
no way.
yeah. So did always win it. That time we did. No, yeah, that game, I think we got up, I don't know, maybe 13-0 before they called their first time out. I think we were up 20 by halftime, and we were not interested in coming off that gas pedal for a little while. I'll just put it that way.
How much of it was you guys had played together for so long, you knew each other, you knew every movement, and just had a lot of natural talent. And then how much of it, was Coach Drain? I mean, it was his first varsity basketball team, I believe, and just his impact with you guys. He kind of knew what your guys' skills were, and I'm sure he had a lot to do with your success as well.
Oh, absolutely. He did some things there that I'd never heard of, right? I remember us, remember one week he said, all right, look, here's what we're going to do. And he goes, we're going to line up in a 1-2-2 defense, right? Now, if they pass the ball to the right, we're immediately switching to a 1-3-1. And then they pass the ball to the left, we're immediately switching to a man-to-man. I forget all the different things that he had on there, right? And I'm thinking, what? Okay. And so sure enough, we didn't do it a lot, but right, we would do that for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and the teams would blow through 3 or 4 timeouts because they couldn't figure out what we were doing and how we were doing. Just little things. Of course, he was our kind of our conditioning coach in football, right? And so we had a long run in football. So I want to say we ended up at like 16 laps in 16 minutes or something like that on Wednesday night, our football game was Saturday and our first basketball game was Tuesday, and we did not stop running. And that was, his goal. I mean, he was pretty honest, right? We were going to be in better shape than anyone else we played. And we would press and play man-to-man all game long and just, 7 people just outwork those other guys. And that was a lot of his influence on us. Outwork them.
Yeah.
I had a special relationship with Mr. Drain. He had me at point guard, and I was a sophomore first year, and I made some bad decisions, and he informed me of some of those decisions and helped me to make better decisions. And it was really enjoyable as a junior to really be able to lead the team in the role which I had as a point guard. I wasn't a team captain, but there's a certain responsibility the point guard has, and getting you in the right offense, getting you in the right defense, making sure that what the coach is communicating is getting distributed to everyone. And guys knew their jobs, but still there was, there is the need for someone on the floor to be responsible to make sure that everyone is where they're supposed to be. And, it was a great time for me. I also worked for Mr. Drain. So I got some special tutoring as well. We would go to our janitor jobs to
same here.
special critiques about certain performances and question about why I could not move my feet, and what is wrong with the bounce pass, because anyway, that learned some things there. Those were great times. Mr. Drain is the epitome of I guess I would say the father who's your coach, who is gonna call it like it is, but is gonna love you and express that pride in what you are able to accomplish. Not because he's going to shower you with hugs and kisses, but he's going to tell you, good job, and that means a ton. So.
Oh, big time. And I was a janitor as well with his services. He really helped a lot of us in our younger years, emptying trash cans and making a few dollars. He was always willing to help out guys who wanted to work hard. And he really taught you how to work hard on and off the court. He had a wonderful retirement recently that so many former players were at. And it was just the same message from everybody, all kinds of different guys. Speaking of those guys, Jeff, real quick, back to your teammates. I always ask this question to, Todd and Dave Joe and Rick. And, we all know the types of great guys you all turned out to be in the service industry and everything. But like, what were some of these guys like as friends? What are they still like as friends? Who's the funniest? Who was the hardest worker? Who was the most dependable? I know you could probably say all of them, but I don't know. Some of the names we all know. Just what comes to mind when you think of your teammates that became lifelong friends?
Well, I would say, and they're each unique, and I love them as brothers. Todd is just always faithful. He is always looking for how he can serve. Pete Clark, this guy's always energetic, but he has a certain sense of thoughtfulness and wisdom that he brings to the table now, in addition to the comedy. Rick Johnson is stoic and defendable. He's not a guy who's going to get rattled by the environment or the circumstances, but he's going to be dependable, and he's going to demand that you be dependable back. And it's actually refreshing to have someone who is expecting greatness. He's going to deliver greatness, but he's expecting greatness as well. I can think of some of the other guys that were on that team. John Lee Jr. Here's a guy who really is just talk about a passionate guy who really just over the years has just directed his passion and his work and his family and his faith and his teaching. Bill Lee, there's not a guy that's more committed, right? Obviously, as a Marine. And note, I didn't say retired Marine because, I know Marines don't retire. This guy is just committed and always looking to how do I make something better? How do I improve something? In this case, he had the opportunity to take over Mount Care and it's such a beautiful fit for him. There was Jeff Valdez was another guy who was on that team, good friend of mine. I mean, you're not going to find an individual who is more committed to educating kids than Jeff Valdez. This guy, we've had arguments over different things in the world of education. But there's never been an argument over his commitment and his desire to help the kids that he has in charge of. Mike Whiteside was on that team, and Mike pushed me, man. That guy, he was someone who I don't want to say quite that Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, going to push you to see if you'll push back kind of a deal. But there's a little bit of that he wanted to see if you were going to push back. Were you going to be tough enough? And, he's really a great guy. And I know he's has his family living up in Northern California. The guy is a great fisherman, apparently, too. I got to get up there and see some of that. But, I'm probably missing some guys that were on that team that were Dave Joe, there's a guy who, he has always just been, I think, just faithful to the guys that were on our team and just this idea that if you work hard and you treat others right, that good things are going to come to you and they're going to come to your team and the group around you. There's never been a guy that I've seen who's worked harder. I remember in graduate school, I crashed at his place for a couple of months, and he was an early riser, so he'd be leaving around 4:30 in the morning so he'd get work done before everyone came in the office. Well, I happened to be coming home around 4:30 in the morning because I had a second job up in Arcadia, so I was working through the night on the computer stuff, and so we kind of worked on different clocks, but we would see each other at 4 in the morning, and I just really appreciate him and all that he's done. I can go on and I'd probably, we're running up out of time here on this podcast, at least for me on my schedule, but these guys are amazing.
That's a great, one of the best answers I've heard in regards to that group of guys. You summed it up well. And before I let you go, Jeff, I just want to tell you something you probably haven't heard before in regards that I've never told you. Maybe I have, I don't know. But I have officiated a long time. I haven't for a couple of years. I've officiated college level, professional level in baseball. And, I got a little spark way back when. I told Pete Clark this, but you were actually a person that gave me a little bit of a push at a young age, being like, I want to do it like that someday, because you officiated a lot of our games. When I was in care, you umpired some games in junior high where I was the catcher and I let you get hit by the ball and you stood in there tough and took it. Your work ethic as an official was someone you inspired me later on in life to really pursue it and to do it right, to look sharp when you do it. So I want to say thank you for that. I don't think you ever knew that, but it all started with you taking pride in working our games in Care Youth League.
Wow, that means a lot. Matt, here's a funny thing that you say that. Literally at my door right now is a Carolina blue shirt and some gray pants. I did a few games for Care and basketball, and I figured, I'll volunteer again in baseball, but I got to have my gear. And I gave my gear away. There was another Arch Lake guy, and I was like, hey, here's some up in gear. You need to have the good stuff if you're going to do it. And now I wouldn't fit in that gear, so I had to get a little bit larger gear. But I appreciate you saying that quite a bit. I'm glad there was a positive influence on you, Matt, and that I really did enjoy umping. I really did enjoy refereeing. It was a fun thing to do. I love sports, and just kind of being able to be a part of helping other kids have fun at the sport. And when I got to be in high school and junior high, that's kind of how I looked at it. Plus, hey, I could earn a little bit of money, so that was never a bad thing. So,
yeah, you're out there by yourself.
I'm glad you took it and went bigger and better.
Yeah, you're out there working games by yourself and making mistakes, and like we all have. And as a kid, I was even like, he's raw, getting all worked up. And then I'm working games by myself later on in life. I'm like, okay, I get it. And I just wanted to keep going. So, anyone who
it definitely times was like, I can't see it, but I got to make a call. He's out. And then you're like, yeah, you're gonna hear it. You're like, It's just me out here. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I just think it goes again to your character. If you're going to do something, give it your best effort. You never know who's watching and who might follow your example. So thanks again for that. Jeff, one more time, where can people go to, if they, want to look into some physical therapy or get some suggestions of your services?
Sure. The easiest place to do is probably go online. If you Google the Body Center Physical Therapy, or if you want to go to www.bodycenterpt.com, you can find our website there. Obviously it'd be an honor and privilege to help anybody in that regard. But Matt, I really appreciate you doing this. I hope we can get together again. We can chop it up over some of the current topics here, or we'll talk a bit more about basketball and whatnot, but it's been a great time with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait for part 2, man. And feel good so you can do good. I think that's a great motto.
There it is. Thank you, sir.
All right, Jeff. Take care, man.
All right. Be well.
Well, I say it often, and I do mean it each and every time, but I could have talked another hour and a half with Mr. Jeff Fairley there. Dr. Jeff Fairley, excuse me. We didn't even get into his continuing his education and to pursue some other things professionally, current events and topics and things of that nature. He's a busy guy, had to let him go. Sometimes I go down memory lane and I just want to keep talking and asking questions, but that's why we have the podcast. And Jeff has already told me that, if we want to do a part 2 very soon, that we will go ahead and do that. And what I would like is to hear some feedback from the audience out there. If the audience is like, hey, you guys got to keep talking or do another one real soon, then I'll tell Jeff that and we will make it happen. I know he's a busy guy, but we'll find time. So great conversation with Jeff Fairley, talking about so many things. I was so glad we got to finally do it. Where he's at now, where he came from, his road to where he is now. Those are lessons and those are things that are relatable for all of us, no matter what walk of life we are. So one of the great guys of Rio Hondo Prep alums out there, and just some great stories there with Jeff, and I can't wait to talk with him again very soon. We'll have to maybe USC football season, when that gets going, get his opinions there. There's other opinions I know that I like hearing from him, just as, again, current events and things. He's someone I definitely respect and hope to hear more from. So Jeff Fairley, thank you so much for coming on the Get Home Safe podcast. That was truly an honor and a blessing. So I will talk to you again very, very soon. Guys, that will wrap up another week of shows here on the podcast. It's only 2 episodes a week, but hey, we're trying to keep this thing going weekly to stay consistent, to have a great guest on here, have some guests on here we've had already. That's fine too. Just catching up and talking about whatever, talking about life, our journey, what inspires you. How did you get to, how did you end up where you are now? We all have bumps along the way and lessons that we can all learn. And I'm always just looking to be inspired by people I talk to hear about their journey, to hear about the ups and downs, and to just catch up with some alumni from Rio Hondo Prep, to talk to some of my officiating friends. Again, this podcast is a blessing, and I love doing it and want to continue to do this. So thanks for all the support out there. There's lots of ways to support the podcast. As you're all aware, Get Home Safe Podcast is our Instagram and Facebook page, Get Home Safe Pod on Twitter, and Get Home Safe Podcast at yahoo.com if you want to send an email with any topic or whatever. So love hearing from you guys. And also there's a voice message link in the bottom of the episode notes there. You can use that. Contact us through social media, our YouTube channel. If you're watching this, you already know that, but Get Home Safe Podcast, great way to watch and interact on the podcast as well. So subscribe, rate, review, leave comments. I love the interaction. If we can get that going again, let's do so. But until next week, guys, enjoy your weekend. I'll be back on Tuesday with just me rambling for about 45 minutes or so about my thoughts on current events, the sports recap from the weekend, and of course, plenty of just random thoughts that go through my head, sharing them here on the microphone on the podcast. And on Friday, I promise you another great guest with another fun-filled conversation. Hope everyone is doing well. Spring is here. It's a beautiful time of year as we, kind of after before it gets too hot, right after it's kind of too cold for us Californians anyway. It's a beautiful time of year. Enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the nice spring weather. But guys, until next time, no matter what you're doing, whether you're out on the town, or rounding third base. Get home safe.